Have you ever heard that Africa is one of the places around the world that is not tolerant when it comes to homosexuality?
We bring in the studio this morning one of the gay rights activists, Mr. Should I call you Mr? Sure. Pepe Julian Onzima. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
Good morning.
Morning to you.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay. You are a transgender.
What shows that I'm gay?
You are a transgender, yes, and you're a gay rights activist and an outspoken lesbian.
Homosexuality is a sensitive topic in many African countries. It is illegal in most countries around the continent, and even punishable in some cases. Although it is not enforced in some countries, it is still looked down upon and considered a taboo even in those countries. Some of our politicians are very outspoken against homosexuality and have used terms such as un-African and disgusting to describe it. So why is Africa against homosexuality? Reason number 1. Religion. Africa is one of the most religious continents in the world. Islam and Christianity are the two most dominant religions in the continent. And in both religions, homosexuality is a sin and not allowed. Christianity is losing stronghold in the Western countries, but not in Africa. About 50 to 60% of the African population are Christians, coupled with about 30 to 45% of the population being Muslims. And with both religions outlawing LGBT practices, the adherents of the religions tend to outlaw the practice as well. Homosexual acts may have punishments ranging from imprisonment to the death penalty. The death penalty is mostly implemented in countries that use religious reasons when carrying out the punishments. Reason number 2. Culture and tradition. Well, this might seem obvious, but African culture values marriage and having kids, building communities, and coming together to raise kids. Obviously, promoting homosexual relationships mean not being able to have these things. Others argue that homosexuality is a foreign concept being imported to Africa. Former Zimbabwean president, the late Robert Mugabe, who claimed homosexuality is un-African and a white disease. These words might seem harsh, but this is how many people feel about it in Africa. Others feel that it is not a priority, since Africa is a continent where many people die of hunger, malnutrition, starvation, and diseases like HIV and malaria. So the last thing most Africans want to talk about is LGBT. Here is the former Kenyan president talking about it on CNN.
One of the major issues, and it's a holdover from sort of colonial Victorian, is the issue of sexual preference in many African countries. In Kenya, to be gay, the LGBT community is illegal. They just want to have equal rights, the same privacy and equality as all other Kenyans do. Is that something that you aspire to for your country?
I want to be very clear, Christiana. I will not engage in a subject that is of it is not of any major importance to the people and the Republic of Kenya. This is not an issue, as you would want to put it, of human rights.
Reason number 3. Sexuality is a private affair in Africa. In most African cultures and traditions, sex is a privately held affair. Talk less of homosexuality. The LGBT movement is largely known for promoting homosexual laws, publicly bringing the discussions to the forefront, and wanting to enact new laws in their favor. A lot of people in the West think that the African population accepts LGBT and that the politicians prevent the laws from being implemented. This is actually quite the opposite. The people are generally opposed to it. In fact, I will argue that some presidents wouldn't have a problem implementing it if they are pressured by the West, but then the people they might probably lose the election just by implementing it. Reason number 4: colonialism and the anti-LGBT laws. The Western countries were very Christian during colonialism and the conquest of Africa. They claimed that they wanted to liberalize and civilize Africa by colonizing the people. Ironically, liberalism is the biggest supporter of LGBT, and yet they added anti-LGBT laws in many of the African countries that they colonized. Of course, Western countries are not as religious now, which explains their reversal on the issue. So what is the current state of LGBT in Africa? Let's look at it. Same-sex marriages are only legalized in South Africa. And in most countries, even though it's not legal, it's also not illegal, since it is not even mentioned in the law. Africa is currently not changing its position on homosexuality. Not only are they not changing it, many countries are actively implementing stricter laws against homosexuality. For example, in Uganda, a local organization had painted one of the park towers in rainbow colors as part of an effort to refurbish the site. Voices began to emerge that rainbow colors were satanic and signaled an invasion of homosexuality through manipulation of children's minds. Ugandan authorities therefore announced the removal of the rainbow painting from the park following an uproar among parents who alleged that the satanic design promoted homosexuality in the largely Christian country. Also in Uganda, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly slammed some members, saying that the malicious bylaws that they were attempting to enact to reorganize LGBT as minorities contravenes the national laws, and the bill was rejected and red-flagged. On top of that, the Ugandan government just presented an anti-gay bill in parliament in March 2023. If this bill passes, it will introduce new tough penalties for homosexual offenses. Moreover, in Tanzania, the government has banned a popular series of children's books from schools, claiming they violate cultural norms. The education minister announced an immediate ban on the book Diary of a Wimpy Kid and said that the government was monitoring libraries in both public and private schools and to make sure they were not on their shelves. In Kenya, the First Lady, Rachel Ruto, has declared national prayers against homosexuality in the country, declaring the practice as a threat to the institution of the family. She said, "We want to strengthen the family institution where we have a father, mother, and children. LGBT is forbidden even in the Bible and in the African culture. Let us hold on to our family values." Still, in Kenya, the deputy president warned that attempts to legitimize LGBT will not be condoned. Recently, a court in Burundi has charged 24 people with homosexual practices. The East African country is waging a crackdown on LGBT. After interrogations, which lasted for about 10 days, 17 men and 7 women were charged with homosexual practices by the prosecutor before they were being imprisoned.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror.